Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair, and today we continue Dino-Sember with a look at Pterodactyl. Originally broadcast in 2005, this is another sci-fi movie about, you guessed it, killer pterodactyls. They're back, they're angry, and they're killing horror movie cliché characters left and right! And they aren't dinosaurs. Technically speaking, pterodactyls are flying reptiles, but it shouldn't surprise anyone considering the quality of this movie that the paleontologists on display insist up and down that they are in fact dinosaurs. The basic setup is as such. A recent earthquake by an ancient volcano has attracted paleontologists on an expedition to discover what amazing fossils might have been unearthed. However, upon arriving, they instead find pterodactyls. Even worse, they somehow got mixed up with the US Army as they just so happened to be in the neighborhood killing insurgents. You might think it sounds like absolutely none of that would mesh naturally in the slightest. Well, let's take a look at Pterodactyl and find out. We open up to a mountain and an earthquake. Which has revealed some eggs. And yes, this is another one of those movies where an earthquake from an ancient prehistoric site has revealed eggs that have just been so perfectly preserved that they also happen to still be alive. Movie writers, we have found actual, for real, dinosaur eggs in real life. They didn't make it. But there are more eggs, and they hatch into pterodactyl hand puppets. My favorite. We suddenly fast forward 2 months later and find some redneck hunters hunting pheasant in North Turkey, which makes sense to someone out there. But then they are suddenly attacked by pterodactyls! 2-month-old pterodactyls. Because you can't say that they were attacked by hatchlings. That would just be silly. Almost as silly as the fact that they are well equipped for shooting flying targets, but for some reason these creatures are bulletproof. Just in this one scene, too. They do take plenty of damage later in the movie. Well, it's the hunters who have become the hunted today, allowing us to move on to meet the actual important characters, such as Kate Heinlein, played by Amy Sloan, and her former teacher, Professor Michael Lovecraft, played by Cameron Dado.
You know, it's not often that an earthquake makes it possible to look inside a volcano that's been dormant since Jurassic.
How? Earthquakes and volcanic activity kind of go hand in hand. Unless it's the dormant part, because, as we all know, dormant volcanoes create areas of suspended animation for anything that happens to be living in the vicinity for time travel purposes, because, after all, the only time things actually live by a volcano is when it is actively spewing the earth with liquid hot magma. Mr. Lovecraft intends to use this expedition to repair his reputation in paleontological circles, and his name to remind us all about how this movie will be a descent into madness. It's not just him and Kate on this expedition, though. There's also the sponsor's daughter, Angie Lem, played by Micaiah Monroe.
Professor Lovecraft, my father didn't finance this expedition to put his daughter, moi, in jeopardy.
Are you sure? You're the stereotypical spoiled rich kid and ditzy blonde. Your father just might have. She wants a police escort, but the local guide informs her that they don't have law and order around these parts, just bandits, so watch your butts, okay? The rest of the team is introduced in short order. Gwen Kemper, played by Dana Lee, Jason Donaldson, played by Howard Lotker, and Willis Bradbury, played by Steve Braun.
Who dressed you this morning, geek boy? The Ringling Brothers?
Put a sock in it, Angie, all right? Move over.
Loser.
And we can already tell, despite most of the characters being named after famous writers, that did fuck all to improve the writing of this movie. Now that the gang's all here, Lovecraft takes them all on the adventure of a lifetime! Which can't be that interesting, as we suddenly shift over to an entirely different group. A US Armed Special Forces group, tracking bad guys, being led by none other than...
Settle down. After this son of a bitch yelled him for too long. Remember, I want him alive.
Coolio. Coolio? Coolio. Yeah, Coolio's in this movie, and he's leading a mission to capture an enemy kingpin, who isn't at this particular outpost, so fuck it, shoot the whole place up, murder everyone! And then reflect on the situation.
Yolin's in this force. And we're not leaving until he's our prisoner, or we're dead.
We get paid either way, right, Cap?
Sure, I might end up rotting in the hillside on the Turkish-Armenian border, but as long as that check's still coming. So their job's not done. They have to continue through these woods in search of people to kill. On a totally unrelated note, our important group of asshats are also coming down this way. They've got a Jeep, but have to stop because the students pull off every family road trip cliche they can think of, which ends up giving Lovecraft and Kate some time to themselves, so she can reminisce about how they met back when she was one of his students.
And you've still never tried to kiss me.
What? Kate? You're one of my students. I can't...
What's this? An attractive young woman wishes to have a relationship with me? Well, not today. I will have you know, nothing can get between me and my absolute love for paleontology. His fumbling over how scandalous an idea this is gets her to divert immediately to the cold shoulder. However, one student trips across something while he's relieving himself. It turns out to be something where something else has been relieving itself.
Covers the trees 100 feet up.
But it's not individual droppings, Miss Kate. It's more like long streams. That's what I was trying to tell you.
Come on, Willis, what's big enough to excrete this amount of urine?
Tonight on SyFy, Godzilla's back, and he's pissing like a 200-foot tall racehorse. After determining that none of them know what in the hell could have done this, they decide, must not be that important, and move on without even documenting the discovery. Gotta drive down to the volcano after all.
This is so incredibly boring.
You wouldn't think that about a movie about giant fucking prehistoric monsters murdering people, and here we are.
You're boring.
Oh, come on, I'm doing the best with what I got. They may be 2 hours away from their destination, and it's clearly still midday, but Lovecraft decides, fuck it, close enough, let's camp here for the night. Afternoon, whatever.
So, is this how it's gonna be the entire trip?
What are you talking about?
She said she was interested. You said you weren't. She said fine. That's it. I don't really think that showing her that you can't handle rejection, that you initiated, is really gonna win her over. Angie only overhears enough to tease Kate over that relationship that she doesn't have with him, but no bother. This is a horror movie. Angie is our ditzy blonde. It's time for her to go skinny dipping. Or as close to skinny dipping as you can get for a made-for-TV movie. Here's hoping she brought a change of underwear. Not because soggy undergarments are uncomfortable, but rather the fact that she probably pissed herself when this happened. I don't know what's worse, CGI? Or the scientifically inaccurate pterodactyl there. Pterodactyls weren't that big. They were actually kind of small, had the wingspan of a peregrine falcon. They couldn't just hover there, and those feet, those are not pterodactyl feet. Those look more like hawk feet. So I guess the special effects are a bit better than the scientific accuracy, because while horrifyingly wrong, the feet are actually not CGI. So the filmmakers used more money to make something look better? I am in shock, honestly. Unfortunately, though, those so-called pterodactyls still aren't quite good enough to scoop off Angie, and she manages to slip away.
Oh my god! There's a flying thing out there! What do you call it?
UFOs.
But she still can't escape this movie's writing. Fortunately, we do see that hope still exists in this world, as the guy continues down the lake, only to be swooped upon by a vicious pterodactyl, carried off to his death.
Didn't you hear me screaming?
Where are your clothes?
Jason!
Jason?
Oh, don't get my hopes up. That would be a much better movie. She shoots down my hopes very quickly by explaining what the actual movie monster is.
The pterodactyl?
Yes.
Is it beautiful birds?
Willis.
Tits! I like tits! Now come to think of it, that is a cliche character trait that I can identify with. Angie's swearing up and down that she was attacked by a big bird, aka a pterodactyl, gets the usual eye rolls. Strangely, not because birds are dinosaurs and pterosaurs are flying reptiles and not dinosaurs and in no way related to birds, but either way, Lovecraft heads down with Willis to see if they can find Jason and corroborate Angie's story.
If I don't get eaten alive.
Get it? Because Jason was eaten alive. And we clearly saw him carried off with both of his arms still intact, so I guess the pterodactyl just ripped one off and brought it back and hid it there because it'd be kind of funny. So Lovecraft comes back like, no, can't find Jason, which results in Angie swearing the pterodactyl got him, but the professor's not buying it. After all, she's the ditz of the group. He even tells Kate how dumb she was when asked about pterodactyls in class.
Quote, they are big Jurassic birds that eat gross Jurassic worms.
They can't shoot her for it.
Oh, that's what you think. Kate notices that Lovecraft seems kind of dismissive about the fact that one of his students has disappeared and another swears she was attacked, and indeed he is. But upon her insistence, he promises that he's actually going to bother looking for wherever Jason has run off to.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
While he chases after that damn red balloon, Coolio has found who he's looking for. Tearing a very obvious hole in the tent, he spies the inside with a snake cam that's so damn obvious he may as well be using a Sony Handycam. On the plus side, the lady who notices doesn't much care for the bad guy, Yolin, played by Ivo Kutsarida, and runs sexy interference for the soldier.
Oh, no. No doubt he deserves it. But we got other plans for him.
It turns out this is just a really elaborate best terrorist ever surprise party. While Coolio gets his man, Lovecraft came up empty, and turns the jeep the other way to maybe get the non-existent police to help. However, before they get too far, the group finds they are being followed by none other than...
Pterodactyl.
What? Come on, not you two. It's enough.
Oh, you gonna keep Pterodactyl and I'll give you something to Pterodactyl about! At least he stops brushing off the danger once he sees for himself, oh yeah, there's the motherfucking Pterodactyl! Not to say he isn't still an asshole.
Shut up, bitch! Stop screaming! Beautiful. Everybody out! Run for the trees!
Why is the car smoking? Nothing happened. I swear, the car could be working just fine, and on, and running, and then it's just like, oh, I'm in a horror movie, better fuck up for no reason. Also for no reason, Gwen just can't stand up straight. She's just tripping over nothing. I feel like they added the pterodactyl later more to explain the acting rather than it being totally scripted that way. Either way, everyone just stares like idiots while Gwen is carried off to her horrifying death.
Professor, did you see that? That was amazing. Are you insane?
Nah, you probably don't have to worry about him until he starts asking why people aren't being thrown into wood chippers. Also, in case you didn't figure it out by now, the car's fucked! Everyone wants to get out of here fast, too. Except for Lovecraft, who thinks that you'd be crazy if you wanted to leave and let some other scientist take credit for this discovery.
That thing killed Gwen, and for all we know, it already killed Jason, too.
It's a predator, Kate.
Oh!
It's nothing personal.
Okay, so, about that missed opportunity for a relationship with this man, I think it's safe to say you dodged a bullet there, Kate. Now that this movie's almost halfway through and the two stories still haven't converged, who happens to be coming down the hill but Coolio and friends? They have their prisoner, but they also notice the local pterodactyl problem and the rising body count. Before they can meet up with our group of victims, though, who just so happens to show up, but the bad guys' group of bad guys, and they want to know where Bad Guy is.
What are we waiting for, Cap?
Till they're clear enough to engage, that's what.
Yeah, just sit back here and wait for the bad guys to kill all of the civilians, and then there won't be any left to be caught in the crossfire. Considering Lovecraft has no idea who in the fuck Yolin even is, they decide to loosen his tongue. With a little reenactment of I Spit on Your Grave. God damn it. Fortunately, the pterodactyls swoop in and save the day! This chaotic mosh pit of paleontologists, terrorists, and terrible paleontology gets the special forces to actually kick in a gear and join the fray. By the time it's all said and done, absolutely every nameless goon from the goon convoy has been killed. Strangely enough, everyone else is present and relatively unharmed.
So what now?
I know it's a thin plot, but the movie does still have a plot. You could flee back to civilization and safety, or you could stay in the area to study the pterodactyls. And either way, remember to keep yelling at the group for every little thing to remind Kate about just how bad of a catch you are. Escape is the plan, but the GIs can't call in a helicopter because technically they're not supposed to be there. Coolio also points out that civilians aren't supposed to be out here either, and there were plenty of warnings issued by the State Department about this, which Lovecraft knew about before putting everyone's lives at risk. What a guy.
I guess you know why now, don't you?
Don't patronize me. I don't need a lecture from you.
You don't? You don't think that maybe there's a little problem with the fact that by now you've gotten several of your students killed? Yeah, Lovecraft's failing all the diplomacy checks today, but as luck would have it, Kate just so happens to be the daughter of Bulldog, a decorated veteran and the man who taught Coolio all he knows about the art of war.
Well, of course we got time. Don't be ridiculous.
I mean, despite the fact that they have next to nothing in common in terms of goals, what they hope to accomplish, what in the fuck either of them are doing out here, her dad's cool, let's team up. The soldiers figure they can get the civilians to safety while bringing the prisoner towards that military tribunal. Now, considering they are trying to avoid detection from both the terrorists in the area that we never see again, and the pterodactyls, it would be best if they stuck to the shadows and stayed in the forested area. I mean, there's literally no reason for them to just waltz out into the middle of a big open field and god damn it!
Take cover!
So a completely avoidable fight breaks out. This is the movie's way of saying, yeah, all these different characters are gonna cluster the fuck out of the scene, so let's thin out the ranks a tad. We also establish a handy-dandy head-mounted tracking system to fire goddamn homing rockets at flying targets. Just the thing to bring along on a secret stealth mission to capture one man alive. Several soldiers bite the dust, but more importantly... Oh no, not Angie! Not that anyone really liked her, but her father was funding this expedition and he's gonna be pissed. As the body count rises, we take note of the fact that there happens to be one pterodactyl among the group with a bony crest, who is also the one who can dodge homing missiles. Yay, a boss monster. Before we go, though... Hold on there, Lovecraft. I assume she's going to live because the pterodactyl carefully grabbed her by the backpack, but maybe not if you keep shooting at her like that. The pterodactyls have stopped attacking, but they have taken Kate towards the volcano.
Alright, let's head for that volcano.
Fuck it, I know where this plot's going. Let's just get it over with. We get to see how Kate's holding up. Not too surprising. She's still alive! I mean, if you ask me, it really doesn't make sense for the mama pterodactyls to drop a rather large predator species that has effectively killed some of their full-grown members into the nest and just assume that the hatchlings will take care of her, but said infants are depicted as being vicious little ankle-biters, so Kate hides behind some shrubbage for safety. Also, on the way to the volcano, the group finds a dead pterodactyl.
Not sure I care anymore.
Forgive me, Professor, but this is vitally important to science.
Do you think it matters to your friends that died back there?
Professor, I don't have any friends. After the baddie takes an opportunity to say, you know what, American soldiers are the real terrorists, and then solidifies his place as the asshole of the group by going off on how it's just right for women to submit to men, the group moves on to find an abandoned house. Abandoned because the sheep herder who lives there is kinda half-eaten in the front lawn, and that's because there are pterodactyls. And that's pretty much how this movie goes from here on out. The group walks 10 feet, finds pterodactyls, a few are killed off, a few good guys are killed, and then they have to decide what to do next. Considering this path has led to several more casualties, it does beg the question.
I mean, we don't even know if they're alive up there. Shouldn't we concentrate on getting the people who are still breathing home?
Maybe.
And considering it is one civilian you are trying to save, and in doing so you are putting many other civilians' lives at risk, and have already lost several of them, as well as several servicemen in the process, might I say, fuck it. Hold on, though, there just so happens to be a walkie-talkie in the pterodactyl nest, allowing Kate to contact the group and assure them that yes, she is still alive, and does need their help. Well, that settles it, gotta march off to die. Seems Willis and Zeleny are injured, though. Zeleny played by Jessica Farrarone, and they must stay behind. For about 3 minutes before Z here just dies and pterodactyls burst through the door and kill Willis in short order. Kate is also in danger, but what's this? There just so happens to be a handy-dandy gun in the nest as well.
Hold on! Let's move.
Allowing Kate to escape the nest. In Act 3. And you can't just have her Rambo her ass out of there as soon as she gets there, even if it does make more sense. Besides, she gets all of 5 feet before falling onto a ledge below, so it's not like it helped all that much. With all the pissed off pterodactyls, this looks like the end. But then they just don't bother to attack.
Looks like we got a reprieve.
Thank God.
That gives us about 8 hours to get Bulldog over here and get out before first light.
Because pterodactyls sleep at night, you see? And their sleep pattern is kind of like werewolves. It really doesn't matter what they're doing. Guys, the sun's set. It's time to turn into a pumpkin. Now, 8 hours should be more than enough time for them to climb down, meet up, and GTFO, but that would be easy, smart, safe, and logical for this group. Nope! Instead, remember that sheep herder we saw earlier? Well, it turns out there were sheep back there as well, just out of frame. No idea how the pterodactyls missed them, but the heroes got back, haul one over, and use it along with a handy-dandy rope to create a sort of sheep grappling hook. Waiting until dawn so the pterodactyls can bring it into the nest, because why go along with any plan unless it wastes literally all the advantage you ever had in this situation? And the bad guy manages to break free of his binds. Bang up job our heroes are doing. Grabbing a gun, Yolan holds Coolio hostage. For about 2 seconds before Kate shoots him. This gives Coolio 2 guns with which to take on the pterodactyls. Up until it gets a bit too crazy even for him and they swoop down and knock him out!
Professor, give me a gun. Come on, man.
Oh sure, give the bad guy who literally just pointed a gun at your group another gun and just hope that he learned his lesson.
Give me a gun. Come on, man. What are you, insane?
Ask the guy who just gave a gun to a man who obviously cannot be trusted with a gun and already tried to betray you with a gun! Fortunately, the pterodactyls take him out and we can put that ridiculously stupid plot point behind us. While this was going on, Spare Soldier used a sheep grapple to cross the gap and retrieve Kate. However, the rope breaks, he falls, and Kate barely survives.
We gotta get out of here. We gotta get to some cover. Let's go.
Oh, now you realize that cover is a thing. Maybe that would be nice to protect ourselves from airborne predators. Okay, then where is the last battle going to take place? In the same big fucking open field that they filmed over half this movie in already! The events on the ledge left all of the pterodactyls defeated, except for the big boss fight, of course. But they have Coolio, and he's so badass, he lets the boss grab him so he can fire a perfect heat-seeking missile away from it so it can turn around. Well, it drops him. So the suicide part of the suicide mission worked out at least. Now it's down to Lovecraft and Kate. The professor figures he's gonna do what Coolio tried, but without missing this time, locking the missile onto the pterodactyl before blow! It explodes like an overpressurized vat of beef stroganoff, leaving Lovecraft and Kate as the sole survivors of this harrowing ordeal. Are we just gonna forget about how much of an asshole Lovecraft was throughout this whole movie? Not caring about his students' lives over the discovery of a real living pterodactyl, snapping in Kate's face and yelling at her and taking rejection really, really badly? No? Just all water under the bridge now? Nothing can stop the power of love, no matter how badly written it is. Except maybe sequel bait! A sequel that we can hope is never, ever going to arrive because, dear God, that was Pterodactyl. It sucked. Man, these made-for-sci-fi movies are something else. Something else other than good. Pterodactyl is a pretty simple setup that we've seen many times before. Ancient Earth is uncovered via an earthquake, contains ancient life forms, horror ensues. However, it's not the setup that's the problem here, but the execution. With 3 distinct factions vying for screen time between the terrorists, the scientists, and the soldiers, not a lot really happens. Once Yolan is successfully captured and one search party is killed, we never hear from the terrorists again. The soldiers' mission to capture the guy also takes a backseat to the scientists' adventure, which consists of mainly walking around in circles and letting pterodactyls eat everybody. They do technically have goals amidst all this, but their epic journey always seems to circle back to the big fucking open field where 90% of the body count takes place. This makes a science fiction horror flick about people being slaughtered by flying reptiles look more like kids playing make-believe in the park. When it comes to the acting and characters, it's not something to be proud of. It's not absolutely horrendous, but the characters come as stereotypical as possible, and the acting does nothing to raise any of them above and beyond. Hell, Coolio's character technically had a name, Captain Bergen, but fuck it, to me it's just Coolio because Bergen doesn't really have any discernible traits to make him a memorable character. At the end of the day, Pterodactyl is terrible with a P. The use of some puppeteering helps balance out the bad CGI, but it all looks pretty bad. The horror lies almost exclusively in the body count, and the characters are too cookie-cutter to feel like actual people, and as a result, none of the deaths feel particularly horrifying, coming in at 1 gratuitous tit shot out of 5. I think the most depressing thing here has to be that I really wasn't looking for the worst of the worst for Dinosember this year. I just bought a couple of dinosaur movies and this is what I got. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado. And remember, watch out for falling streams of Godzilla pee.